Welcome to Scriptural Science, a presentation of Truth and Life Institute, Boston, Massachusetts, and Oba, Nigeria. The following is a subsection of the book, Save Yourself from Your Wealth and the Lure of Wealth, written and published by Ifeanyi Chukwujima, scriptural scientist and a servant of God, and by Dr. Ifeanyi Chukwujima, Doctor of Pharmacy. This subsection's ID is Save Yourself 5:3. Every woman is obligated to God and her husband to maintain her husband's heritage. The pride of the heart and greed had caused a great percentage of women throughout human history to quickly forget the great importance of the gift that is the marriage they had received from their Maker, the all-knowing God of the earth and the universe, who alone had set purpose and value for marriage and all things. After God had created man and woman and united the two in marriage and blessed them abundantly, God did not give them any laws because love is all that is needed for life. The man and his wife were free and happy, and nothing hindered them. But God was sure to tell them that something was going on, which they must avoid. As every good judge does in a court of law, God avoided sharing details of Satan's ongoing trial with them to shelter them from knowing evil. Genesis 2 verse 17. The all-knowing God knew the man and his wife would live contentedly if they simply obeyed his command and not venture into grave matters they needed to know as little as possible about. Genesis 2:17, so they could remain innocent. And the man and his wife lived contentedly for a while and remained innocent as good children of God until the woman decided to stir things up. And she brought the whole mankind down with herself. 1 Timothy 2 verse 14 NIV. And Adam was not the one deceived. It was the woman who was deceived and became a sinner. And God gave the conforming law directly to the woman about wanting something she did not need, desire, and about disobedience of authority, insubordination, both of which are caused by indiscipline and lack of humility. Your desire will be for your husband, and he will rule over you. Genesis 3 verse 16 NIV. God stabilized the man and his wife from their derailment, and they continued to testify on God's behalf. Genesis 3 verse 20, Genesis 4 verses 1 and 25. Prophet Micah would later testify that human affinity to religious legalism is human misunderstanding of what God truly desires from human beings, even a deliberate refusal to obey God. Because we have come to believe that we are all that matters in the world, the main attraction, which is far from the truth. With what shall I come before the Lord and bow down before the exalted God? Shall I come before him with burnt offerings, with calves a year old? 7 Will the Lord be pleased with thousands of rams, with 10,000 rivers of olive oil? Shall I offer my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul? 8 He has shown you, O mortal, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? To act justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with your God. Micah 6 verses 6 to 8 NIV. Lucifer thought he was all that mattered and lived as he wanted, only to end up a shell of his former splendor and a pathetic sight that is shackled and kept in darkness. Jude 1 verse 6. 2 Peter 2 verse 4. From before the beginning of time until the end of time, during which period God hears his appeal for reinstatement to grace. Revelation 12 verse 10. In God's heavenly court. Genesis 1 verses 1 to 31. Job 1 verses 6 to 12. Ephesians 3 verses 9 to 11, etc., which encompasses the earth and the universe. Revelation 5:1, 11, 13, etc. Isaiah 14 verses 4 to 21 NAV, how the oppressor has come to an end. How his fury has ended. 5 The Lord has broken the rod of the wicked, the scepter of the rulers. 6 Which in anger struck down peoples with unceasing blows, and in fury subdued nations with relentless aggression. 7 All the lands are at rest and at peace. They break into singing. 8 Even the junipers and the cedars of Lebanon gloat over you and say, now that you have been laid low, no one comes to cut us down. 9 The realm of the dead below is all astir to meet you at your coming. It rouses the spirits of the departed to greet you, all those who were leaders in the world. It makes them rise from their thrones, all those who were kings over the nations. 10, they will all respond. They will say to you, "You also have become weak, as we are. You have become like us." 11, all your pomp has been brought down to the grave, along with the noise of your harps. Maggots are spread out beneath you, and worms cover you. 12, how you have fallen from heaven, morning star, son of the dawn. You have been cast down to the earth, you who once laid low the nations. 13, you said in your heart, I will ascend to the heavens. I will raise my throne above the stars of God. I will sit enthroned on the Mount of Assembly, on the utmost heights of Mount Zaphon. 14, I will ascend above the tops of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High. 15, but you are brought down to the realm of the dead, to the depths of the pit. 16, those who see you stare at you. They ponder your fate. Is this the man who shook the earth and made kingdoms tremble? 17, the man who made the world a wilderness, who overthrew its cities and would not let his captives go home? 18, all the kings of the nations lie in state, each in his own tomb. 19, but you are cast out of your tomb like a rejected branch. You are covered with the slain, with those pierced by the sword, those who descend to the stones of the pit. Like a corpse trampled underfoot. 20, you will not join them in burial, for you have destroyed your land and killed your people. Let the offspring of the wicked never be mentioned again. 21, prepare a place to slaughter his children for the sins of their ancestors. They are not to rise to inherit the land and cover the earth with their cities. Ezekiel 28 verses 12 to 19 NIV. This is what the sovereign Lord says. You were the seal of perfection, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. 13, you were in Eden, the garden of God. Every precious stone adorned you, carnelian, chrysolite and emerald, topaz, onyx and jasper, lapis lazuli, turquoise and beryl. Your settings and mountings were made of gold. On the day you were created, they were prepared. 14, you were anointed as a guardian cherub, for so I ordained you. You were on the holy mount of God. You walked among the fiery stones. 15, you were blameless in your ways from the day you were created till wickedness was found in you. 16, through your widespread trade you were filled with violence, and you sinned. So I drove you in disgrace from the mount of God, and I expelled you, guardian cherub, from among the fiery stones. 17, your heart became proud on account of your beauty, and you corrupted your wisdom because of your splendor. So I threw you to the earth. I made a spectacle of you before kings. 18, by your many sins and dishonest trade you have desecrated your sanctuaries. So I made a fire come out from you, and it consumed you, and I reduced you to ashes on the ground in the sight of all who were watching. 19, all the nations who knew you are appalled at you. You have come to a horrible end and will be no more. The human being's engrossment with their own importance is a dereliction of their God-assigned duties. Ephesians 2 verse 10, John 15 verse 27, Micah 6 verse 8, etc., which afflicts them with all the misfortunes they have been suffering throughout human history. That God has shown all human beings that the only thing God desires from them is to act justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with their God, Micah 6 verse 8, has been clear from our participations in religion, not only in Judaism and Christianity, but also in Islam and the other religions of the world. However, the Christians are more notorious in the violation of God's law about marriage than the rest. And that is no accident because the Europeans who inherited Christianity from them. Roman Empire elevated politics above religion and God to a level that has not been seen in all human history. Their politics subdued the Christian church and has been ruling over the church and everything called religion across the world. Look around you. Your marriage is the first place to start. Marriage, that first human relationship that was created by God for human salvation. Genesis 2 verse 23, Ephesians 5 verse 29-32 KJV, for no man ever yet hated his own flesh, but nourisheth and cherisheth it, even as the Lord the church. 30, for we are members of his body, of his flesh, and of his bones. 31, for this cause shall a man leave his father and mother, and shall be joined unto his wife, and they two shall be one flesh. 32, this is a great mystery, but I speak concerning Christ and the church. Whatever you see in the lives of the people around you is what you have cultivated to be your eternity. Micah 6, verse 8. Are the lives of the people around you going well? You are building an eternity that will be free from difficulties and sorrows. Are the people around you suffering and in great despair? The eternity you are building for yourself promises suffering and despair. Proverbs 24 verses 10 to 12 NIV. If you falter in a time of trouble, how small is your strength? 11 Rescue those being led away to death. Hold back those staggering towards slaughter. 12 If you say, but we knew nothing about this. Does not he who weighs the heart perceive it? Does not he who guards your life know it? Will he not repay everyone according to what they have done? If God clearly commands that a man leave his father and mother and become one flesh with his wife, Ephesians 5 verse 31, what does the woman, who is the body of her husband, Ephesians 5 verse 23, not understand about leaving behind her own father and mother, Psalm 45:10-11, and concentrating all her efforts on her husband and the mission of continuity that God had given to her husband, so she can remain one flesh with her husband for the rest of their lives, as God had ordained for their respective salvations? As any one of us makes their mat, so will they lie of it. God did not speak to all human beings from obscurity. The Creator of heaven and earth and all things made it clear from the beginning that we are in the world to testify on His behalf with the lives we each live on the earth, from the beginning of it to the end of it. Anyone who chooses to do otherwise harms themselves, with only themselves to blame for the harm they inflict on themselves. The purpose we should each dedicate our lives on was decided for us by God before time began. Ephesians 2 verse 10. None of us was given any rights by God to change that purpose, but live it as God had designed it. Everything we have been occupying ourselves with, away from our God-assigned mission, is simply what they are, distractions. God is not asking anyone to change, Revelation 22:11, but commands all of us to change our ways and save ourselves, Ezekiel 18 verses 31 to 32. A lot of us know the story of childless Hannah in the Bible and how her husband's other wife tormented her because of her childlessness, and how her despair moved God's heart and she had Samuel. What most of us do not pay attention to in Hannah's story is what God used the story to teach about the great value of His gift that is marriage, which makes human salvation possible. Now hear the point we have all been missing from Hannah's husband, Elkanah, 1 Samuel 1 verse 8, who was as heartbroken for his wife as his wife was for herself. This went on year after year. Whenever Hannah went up to the house of the Lord, her rival provoked her till she wept and would not eat. Her husband Elkanah would say to her, Hannah, why are you weeping? Why don't you eat? Why are you downhearted? Don't I mean more to you than 10 sons? 1 Samuel 1 verses 7 to 8. In Elkanah's own helplessness about his wife's torments from his other wife who had children for him, Elkanah continued to remind his wife Hannah of what marriage is all about, which God also made plain in the Bible. That a man and a woman who joined themselves in marriage had become one, and so have become of immeasurable importance to each another. 1 Samuel 1 verse 8, such that neither of them no longer seeks to satisfy their own personal ambitions, but to serve the divine will of God, for which God had joined them together in marriage. This truth about a man and his wife becoming one in the flesh and in their joint resolve to serve God for as long as they both shall live is demonstrated splendidly in the Bible with Naomi and her two daughters-in-law, Ruth and Orpah. The two young women's tenacious love to remain with their mother-in-law and go wherever she went, even though their respective husband had died, was all about the two women's resolute commitment to their respective husbands forever, which their husbands' premature deaths eclipsed. In the days when the judges ruled, there was a famine in the land. So a man from Bethlehem in Judah, together with his wife and two sons, went to live for a while in the country of Moab. To the man's name was Elimelech, his wife's name was Naomi, and the names of his two sons were Mahlon and Chilion. They were Ephrathites from Bethlehem, Judah, and they went to Moab and lived there. 3 Now Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, and she was left with her two sons. For they married Moabite women, one named Orpah and the other Ruth. After they had lived there about 10 years, 5 both Mahlon and Chilion also died, and Naomi was left without her 2 sons and her husband. 6. When Naomi heard in Moab that the Lord had come to the aid of his people by providing food for them, she and her daughters-in-law prepared to return home from there. 7. With her 2 daughters-in-law, she left the place where she had been living and set out on the road that would take them back to the land of Judah. 8. Then Naomi said to her 2 daughters-in-law, "Go back, each of you, to your mother's home. May the Lord show you kindness, as you have shown kindness to your dead husbands and to me. May ninth the Lord grant that each of you will find rest in the home of another husband." Then she kissed them goodbye, and they wept aloud 10 and said to her, "We will go back with you to your people." 11. But Naomi said, "Return home, my daughters. Why would you come with me? Am I going to have any more sons who could become your husbands? 12. Return home, my daughters. I am too old to have another husband. Even if I thought there was still hope for me, even if I had a husband tonight and then gave birth to sons, 13. Would you wait until they grew up? Would you remain unmarried for them? No, my daughters. It is more bitter for me than for you, because the Lord's hand has turned against me." 14. At this they wept aloud again. Then Orpah kissed her mother-in-law goodbye, but Ruth clung to her. 15. Look, said Naomi, your sister-in-law is going back to her people and her gods. Go back with her. 16. But Ruth replied, don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. Where you go I will go, and where you stay I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God my God. 17. Where you die I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if even death separates you and me. 18. When Naomi realized that Ruth was determined to go with her, she stopped urging her. 19. So the 2 women went on until they came to Bethlehem. When they arrived in Bethlehem, the whole town was stirred because of them, and the women exclaimed, "Can this be Naomi?" 20. Don't call me Naomi, she told them. Call me Mara, because the Almighty has made my life very bitter. 21. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty. Why call me Naomi? The Lord has afflicted me. The Almighty has brought misfortune upon me. 22. So Naomi returned from Moab accompanied by Ruth the Moabite, her daughter-in-law, arriving in Bethlehem as the barley harvest was beginning. Ruth 1 verses 1 to 22 NIV. Religious legalism and materialistic pursuits have caused most women in our world today to allow their hearts to grow cold on the men they married, that they treat the children they had with their husbands as more important to them than their husbands for whom they had the children. I once sat through a church sermon where the priest used Ruth and Orpah's love for their respective husbands and family, Ruth 1 verse 8, to demonstrate that there are different types of love: love between a child and their mother or father, love between a man and his wife, love between a man and another man, and between a woman and another mother, which he used to justify homosexuality. That irked me so much that I never attended service at that church to this day, because what the priest, the rector of that church, did was grossly represent God's message about God's most important institution on the earth. God never designs a woman to get pregnant for herself. Genesis 3 verse 16 NIV. Your desire will be for your husband, or raise the child she carries in her womb for herself. Genesis 3 verse 16 NIV. And he will rule over you. Genesis 2 verses 18 and 20. Ephesians 5 verse 22-24. A woman who gets pregnant and raises a child does so for her husband or whatever man was responsible for her pregnancy if she is unmarried, or for her father who inherits the child where no man takes responsibility for the child she bears, because every unmarried woman remains the ward of her father or her brother on whom she depends. Leviticus 21 verse 3. Matthew 3 verse 9 NIV. And do not think you can say to yourselves, we have Abraham as our father. I tell you that out of these stones God can raise up children for Abraham. Genesis 16 verses 1 to 2 NIV. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, had borne him no children. But she had an Egyptian slave named Hagar. 2. So she said to Abram, the Lord has kept me from having children. Go, sleep with my slave. Perhaps I can build a family through her. Abram agreed to what Sarai said. 3 So after Abram had been living in Canaan 10 years, Sarai his wife took her Egyptian slave Hagar and gave her to her husband to be his wife. For he slept with Hagar, and she conceived. 15 So Hagar bore Abram a son, and Abram gave the name Ishmael to the son she had born. 16 Abram was 86 years old when Hagar bore him Ishmael. Leviticus 21 verses 1 to 4 NIV. The Lord said to Moses, "Speak to the priests, the sons of Aaron, and say to them, a priest must not make himself ceremonially unclean for any of his people who die, 2 except for a close relative, such as his mother or father, his son or daughter, his brother. 3 Or an unmarried sister who is dependent on him since she has no husband. For her he may make himself unclean. For he must not make himself unclean for people related to him by marriage, and so defile himself." Many of today's women replace their husbands in their hearts with the children. By so doing, they hollow out their marriages and continually blame their husbands for one thing or another that has nothing to do with the will of God. They come to see their husbands as placeholders which they can easily replace with other men, and disrespect and insult their husbands without limit. Because in their minds, marriage has become an economic tool everyone should try to use to their own advantage. Our religious righteousness has convinced us that marriage is just that. Money matters, especially now that governments define, regulate, and license marriages and impose benefit laws on employers that pay us salaries. But none of what the world does with marriage or anything else matters to God. He still owns everyone and everything, including marriage and everything that is called government everywhere in the world. He did not create marriage for human beings to tell him how marriage works. God had created marriage for his own purpose, which is to save deserving human beings from whatever sins Satan coerced them into committing while they are testifying as God's witnesses in Satan's appeal hearing. That began when the angels of God gathered around God, Job 1 verses 6 to 12, and watched with overflowing excitement as God created the world, Job 38:1-4-7. Right after ushering in his light in Genesis 1 verses 3 to 5, Satan's appeal hearing, which will conclude on the last day, Matthew 2400 hours 36. Here is King David testifying to the world about this unprecedented trial of Satan and the fallen angels. God presides in the great assembly. He renders judgment among the gods too. How long will you defend the unjust and show partiality to the wicked? 3 Defend the weak and the fatherless. Uphold the cause of the poor and the oppressed. For rescue the weak and the needy. Deliver them from the hand of the wicked. 5 The gods know nothing. They understand nothing. They walk about in darkness. All the foundations of the earth are shaken. 6 I said, you are gods, you are all sons of the Most High. 7 But you will die like mere mortals. You will fall like every other ruler. 8 Rise up, O God, judge the earth, for all the nations are your inheritance. Psalm 82 verses 1 to 8 NIV. Psalm 82 verse 5 says that the gods walk about in darkness because they know nothing and lack understanding. That is exactly what Jude 1 verse 6 and 2 Peter 2:4 is talking about. That Satan and the fallen angels, who mindlessly brought death into life by their wickedness and injustice, have been put in chains of darkness by God since before the creation of time, as they wait for God to conclude Satan's appeal of his conviction for unpardonable sins, which will end on the last day. There has been only one great assembly, Psalm 82:1, since time began, the assembly for which God started time in Genesis 1 verses 3 to 5, and created everything he created in the 6 days of creation in Genesis 1, and gathered his loyal angels around him, Job 1 verses 6 to 12, Job 38 verses 1 to 7, Revelation 5:11-12, to watch God and understand God's justice, Ephesians 3 verses 9 to 11. That raising children properly until they know the difference between wrong and right is a divine mission which God had assigned to every wife, is why Elkanah's wife, Hannah, made all the decisions as to the proper time to return her son, Samuel, to the temple of God, to live and serve God till the end of his life. And when she felt she had done a good job bringing him up, she took the boy to live with Eli the priest at the temple of God. If Hannah's husband, Elkanah, was with her on that trip, the Bible said nothing about him being present, because bringing up the boy to God's satisfaction was all on Hannah, the wife, as we will also see in Samson's story below. When it came to leading his family and making the required trips to the house of the Lord yearly to honor God, the Bible places the spotlight on the husband, Elkanah. But when the story changed to raising the child Samuel for God, the spotlight shifted from the husband to his wife Hannah. We continually miss God's precision science in everything that is written in the Bible. Here is the story of Elkanah, his wife Hannah, and their son Samuel. Read it carefully and trust that God never misplaces anything but lays things as he had designed and created them to make clear that he remains in control of his world. So in the course of time, Hannah became pregnant and gave birth to a son. She named him Samuel, saying, "Because I asked the Lord for him." 21 When her husband Elkanah went up with all his family to offer the annual sacrifice to the Lord and to fulfill his vow, 22 Hannah did not go. She said to her husband, "After the boy is weaned, I will take him and present him before the Lord, and he will live there always." 23 Do what seems best to you, her husband Elkanah told her. "Stay here until you have weaned him. Only may the Lord make good his word." So the woman stayed at home and nursed her son until she had weaned him. 24 After he was weaned, she took the boy with her, young as he was, along with a 3-year-old bull, an ephah of flour and a skin of wine, and brought him to the house of the Lord at Shiloh. 25 When the bull had been sacrificed, they brought the boy to Eli. 26 And she said to him, "Pardon me, my lord. As surely as you live, I am the woman who stood here beside you praying to the Lord." 27 I prayed for this child, and the Lord has granted me what I asked of him. 28 So now I give him to the Lord. For his whole life he will be given over to the Lord. And he worshipped the Lord there. 1 Samuel 1 verses 20 to 28 NIV. That raising children properly until they know the difference between wrong and right is a divine mission which God had assigned to every wife, is also why God sent his angel to Manoah's wife about Samson's pregnancy and life, and not to Manoah himself. Let us go through that story. An angel of God had just visited the barren woman that was Manoah's wife in the field and instructed her on what was coming in her life. And after she went home and told her husband about that supernatural encounter, the first thing the man did was pray to God for God's angel to return to them and instruct them on how they should raise this boy whom God had promised them. Manoah knew that whoever wants to be successful in anything in life must know the will of God and how to make sure that the will of God happens as God desires it and ordained it. Here is what Samson's parents did to make sure that the will of God is accomplished in their lives. Again, the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord, so the Lord delivered them into the hands of the Philistines for 40 years. 2 A certain man of Zorah, named Manoah, from the clan of the Danites, had a wife who was childless, unable to give birth. 3 The angel of the Lord appeared to her and said, "You are barren and childless, but you are going to become pregnant and give birth to a son. For now see to it that you drink no wine or other fermented drink, and that you do not eat anything unclean. 5 You will become pregnant and have a son whose head is never to be touched by a razor, because the boy is to be a Nazirite, dedicated to God from the womb. He will take the lead in delivering Israel from the hands of the Philistines." 6 Then the woman went to her husband and told him, "A man of God came to me. He looked like an angel of God, very awesome. I didn't ask him where he came from, and he didn't tell me his name." 7 But he said to me, "You will become pregnant and have a son. Now then, drink no wine or other fermented drink, and do not eat anything unclean, because the boy will be a Nazirite of God from the womb until the day of his death." 8 Then Manoah prayed to the Lord, "Pardon your servant, Lord. I beg you to let the man of God you sent to us come again to teach us how to bring up the boy who is to be born." 9 God heard Manoah, And the angel of God came again to the woman while she was out in the field, but her husband Manoah was not with her. 10 The woman hurried to tell her husband, "He's here, the man who appeared to me the other day." 11 Manoah got up and followed his wife. When he came to the man, he said, "Are you the man who talked to my wife?" "I am," he said. 12 So Manoah asked him, "When your words are fulfilled, what is to be the rule that governs the boy's life and work?" 13 The angel of the Lord answered, "Your wife must do all that I have told her." 14 She must not eat anything that comes from the grapevine, nor drink any wine or other fermented drink, nor eat anything unclean. She must do everything I have commanded her. 15 Manoah said to the angel of the Lord, "We would like you to stay until we prepare a young goat for you." 16 The angel of the Lord replied, "Even though you detain me, I will not eat any of your food. But if you prepare a burnt offering, offer it to the Lord." Manoah did not realize that it was the angel of the Lord. 17 Then Manoah inquired of the angel of the Lord, "What is your name, so that we may honor you when your word comes true?" 18 He replied, "Why do you ask my name? It is beyond understanding." 19 Then Manoah took a young goat, together with the grain offering, and sacrificed it on a rock to the Lord. And the Lord did an amazing thing while Manoah and his wife watched. 20 As the flame blazed up from the altar toward heaven, the angel of the Lord ascended in the flame. Seeing this, Manoah and his wife fell with their faces to the ground. 21 When the angel of the Lord did not show himself again to Manoah and his wife, Manoah realized that it was the angel of the Lord. 22 We are doomed to die, he said to his wife. "We have seen God." 23 But his wife answered, "If the Lord had meant to kill us, he would not have accepted a burnt offering and grain offering from our hands, nor shown us all these things or now told us this." 24 The woman gave birth to a boy and named him Samson. He grew, and the Lord blessed him. 25 And the Spirit of the Lord began to stir him while he was in Mahanadan, between Zorah and Eshtaol. Judges 13 verses 1 to 25 NIV. Notice that on both occasions, the angel of God did not go to the husband, but to the wife, because it was the wife who could either uphold all that were to be done, and by so doing fulfill the will of God, or mess things up if she chose not to obey God, but instead follow her own pride and desires. That has remained the situation to this day. In everything God had commanded in marriage, the woman is the marriage and the building block through which God builds and shapes every human family. Therefore, the woman must keep herself pure and stay away from anything that convolutes, or she will destroy the purity of the family God has set her up to build for her husband. On issues relating to a wife's building of a family for her husband, God visits her directly to let her know that the task God has given to her cannot be messed with, that it must be completed as He, God, desires it and has commanded her to accomplish it. Be sure that God only visits a wife who takes her God-given assignment seriously and has diligently been executing the duties required to accomplish her assignments from God. And the wife who tramples underfoot God's commands for her marriage, God visits with His wrath. Job's wife turned into a pillar of salt after the angels of God had literally held her hands and led their family out of Sodom, away from God's destruction of the city. Job's wife's heart was set on the things she was leaving behind to escape to safety, and she turned around in contradiction to God's express instructions to her and her family, and instantly lost her life, the same life God had gone to great lengths to save. In commanding us to remember Job's wife and taking us through the events that transpired in the flood of Noah, Jesus Christ was not only warning all mankind, wives especially, to not throw away our salvations, as Job's wife did. Christ was more importantly contrasting for the world the choices that two different wives made. Lot's wife with Noah's wife, which brought two drastically opposing results on their families and the world. Lot's wife refused to follow her husband to the end by disobeying the angel's command not to look back until they have reached safety, and so lost her life in her selfishness and brought great difficulty in the life of her children and her husband. In sharp contrast, Noah's wife willingly and wholeheartedly followed Noah into the ark Noah labored on for 120 years, and she saved her life. And by willingly and wholeheartedly following her husband to the end, Noah's wife spared her children and her husband the kind of difficulties Lot's wife's disobedience of God brought into the lives of her own daughters and her own husband. God brought back into Job's life every one of Job's friends and relatives. But God never brought Job's wife back into Job's life because she had shown contempt for God and insisted that Job curse God and die, despite Job's reasoning with her to learn to take the bad with the good. In contrast, in the entire story of Noah and the flood, the world only knows that Noah's wife was there throughout, because the Bible says so in different passages of the Bible. Noah's wife never uttered a single word or engaged in anything that was contrary to God's will. By simply following God and her husband in all things, Noah's wife became the mother of all the living, like Eve, who was a symbol of the body of Christ, that is the church, as well as a perfect role model for all women everywhere. Unlike Eve, who ate fruit from the tree God had forbidden her not to eat from. And unlike today's women who are loud and overly ambitious, Noah's wife never sought to build a name for herself or a life away from her husband, Noah. Instead, Noah's wife dedicated her entire existence to quietly following God and her husband in preserving human lineage for God and helping God destroy death, 1 Corinthians 15 verse 26, and shun sin and the devil, as God had charged. Every woman at their creation by God, Ephesians 2:10, John 15 verse 27, Genesis 3 verse 16, Ephesians 5 verse 22-24, 1 Peter 3 verses 1 to 6, etc. Wives, in the same way submit yourselves to your own husbands so that, if any of them do not believe the word, they may be won over without words by the behavior of their wives, too, when they see the purity and reverence of your lives. 3. Your beauty should not come from outward adornment, such as elaborate hairstyles and the wearing of gold jewelry or fine clothes. For rather, it should be that of your inner self, the unfading beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is of great worth in God's sight. 5. For this is the way the holy women of the past who put their hope in God used to adorn themselves. They submitted themselves to their own husbands, 6 like Sarah, who obeyed Abraham and called him her Lord. You are her daughters if you do what is right and do not give way to fear. 1 Peter 3:1-6 NIV. Manoah had believed his wife that she had a supernatural visitation, and he believed everything his wife had told him that the angel told her to do. Yet Manoah knew that if he prayed to God to bring the angel back, so he too could see what his wife had seen and hear what his wife had heard, that God would bring the angel back. So Manoah prayed, and God brought the angel back to Manoah's wife yet again, and not to Manoah. Manoah's wife then went and fetched her husband to come and meet the angel. From Manoah's question to the angel of God, Manoah was concerned about the rules he had to follow in raising the son that was promised to them. So Manoah asked him, "When your words are fulfilled, what is to be the rule that governs the boy's life and work?" Judges 13 verse 12 NIV. And the angel's response to Manoah's question shows that only Manoah's wife had to follow God's strict instructions in carrying the boy in her womb and grooming the boy as he grew up, after which time the boy will begin to take care of himself. The angel of the Lord answered, "Your wife must do all that I have told her." 14. She must not eat anything that comes from the grapevine, nor drink any wine or other fermented drink, nor eat anything unclean. She must do everything I have commanded her. Judges 13 verses 13-14 NIV. Manoah's wife had described her visitor as an angel of God right from her first encounter with the angel, Judges 13 verse 6. She knew what she had been asking from God and believed that God was being merciful to her and had come to her in person to give her a gift she had not been able to receive like other married women around her. And because of that understanding, she had no reason to be afraid that the visitation could harm her and her husband in any way. But her husband Manoah did not know that their visitor was an angel of God until the good messenger rose with the flames of Manoah's sacrificial fire and vanished in the flame, the sight of which caused a panic in Manoah, We are doomed to die. He said to his wife, We have seen God. 23 But his wife answered, If the Lord had meant to kill us, he would not have accepted a burnt offering and grain offering from our hands, nor shown us all these things or now told us this. Judges 13 verses 22 to 23 NIV. A praying wife fulfills God's will and receives favor from God, in addition to the strength and wisdom she needs to save herself and her entire family. 1 Thessalonians 5:16-18 NIV. Rejoice always. 17 Pray continually. 18 Give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus. God did not choose Manoah's wife for no reason, which was why the woman was not shaken by the experience of the supernatural visitation like her husband. She was glad that God heard her and came to her rescue, which turned out to also be a rescue for all Israel to make it more special for her. Hers was the kind of faith that can move the mountain, and it did for her and for all Israel. We all make our own choices. Whether or not you choose to serve God in everything you do in your life as God had designed it is your decision to make. Revelation 22 verses 10 to 17 NV. Then he told me, Do not seal up the words of the prophecy of this scroll, because the time is near. 11 Let the one who does wrong continue to do wrong. Let the vile person continue to be vile. Let the one who does right continue to do right, and let the holy person continue to be holy. 12 Look, I am coming soon. My reward is with me, and I will give to each person according to what they have done. 13 I am the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last, the beginning and the end. 14 Blessed are those who wash their robes, that they may have the right to the tree of life, and may go through the gates into the city. 15 Outside are the dogs, those who practice magic arts, the sexually immoral, the murderers, the idolaters, and everyone who loves and practices falsehood. 16 I, Jesus, have sent my angel to give you this testimony for the churches. I am the root and the offspring of David, and the bright morning star. 17 The Spirit and the bride say, Come. And let the one who hears say, Come. Let the one who is thirsty come, and let the one who wishes take the free gift of the water of life. James 1 verses 22 to 25 NIV. Do not merely listen to the word, and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says. 23 Anyone who listens to the word but does not do what it says is like someone who looks at his face in a mirror 24 and, after looking at himself, goes away and immediately forgets what he looks like. 25 But whoever looks intently into the perfect law that gives freedom and continues in it, not forgetting what they have heard, but doing it, they will be blessed in what they do.